Irim and we're going to be running a crash course on everything to do about leases. So today we're going to be talking about residential leases. Now, I'll be describing the different residential leases and also how they may affect your personal venture. Residential lease is a legally binding contract. This is usually held between the landlord and the tenant. So this is any sort of governance of their agreement that they have between each other. It can be such things as rights of access, use, or any utility bills. So there's different type of tenancy agreements that are in residential leases. One of them is a short-hold tenancies. So these are ASTs. Then there's also non-assured tenancies. Then further there's an assured tenancy, company-let, regulated tenancy, and then an excluded tenancy. This is also known as lodging. We're going to be talking about assured short-hold tenancies. These are otherwise known as ASTs. They're the most common type of tenancies, and they usually consist of private leases. So this is when it's not on a commercial level, and it's residential, so it's quite common between a landlord and a tenant. So these are when they're after 1989. They're also if it's the main accommodation for the tenant, if the landlord doesn't live in the premises. Now, tenancies are usually ASTs, but there are exceptions for this. This is when the rent is either too high or too low. So they are either fixed term tenancies. So it lasts between 6 months to a year. Anything above that is not regarded as an AST. What happens is after the fixed term has surpassed, it's regarded as a regular periodic payment towards the rent, and that's how the tenancy is governed. So now we're going to talk about non-assured short-hold tenancies. This is where the rent might be below £250 per year, where the tenant themselves might have a main house elsewhere, and when the landlord may be residing in the premises. As you can see, it's the complete opposite to a short-hold tenancy. When it comes to the deposit, therefore there's no protection by the government protections deposit scheme. However, when it comes to terminating the lease, you are able to terminate the lease without the requirements of a Section 21 notice and of a Section 8 notice. And therefore it's a lot more easier to end the tenancy agreement. When it comes to the lease itself, the tenant can reside in the property for the fixed term. But when it comes to past the fixed term, as long as they adhere to the main clauses in the tenancy agreement, they are still entitled to reside there. So now we're going to be talking about exclusive tenancies. So this is when you have a property and the tenant is also residing there. So when the landlord has the tenant residing in the property, this is called lodging. So for this, it's very different to the assured short-hold tenancies, the ASTs, because you would have less rights for your tenant to be evicted. You wouldn't require the 4 weeks notice, and you can do it as long as the tenancy agreement is adhered to. So there are 3 more types of tenancies that we will cover. These are different to the non-assured tenancies and the assured short-hold tenancies. Assured tenancies. These are tenancy agreements between 1989 and 1997. These used to be the most common type of tenancies and were for a very long period. Housing associations usually used to do assured tenancies due to the long-term tenants remaining in their properties. Now we come to regulated tenancies. These are tenancy agreements that are long-term. They were previously set before 1989, and they were also governed by the Valuations Office Agency. Now finally we come to company-let. These are usually tenancies that are not between individuals but between a tenant and the company. So these really are as formal as what you presume a landlord and a tenant assured tenancy would be like. It's less formal, and therefore when it comes to things like eviction and termination of the lease, you wouldn't require the legal formalities. For example, if you were wanting to end the tenancy, you wouldn't require the Section 21 notice or the Section 8 notice. You just put a notice to quit, and that would be sufficient enough to end the tenancy agreement. So folks, that's everything to do with leases for today. If you have any questions regarding your own lease or just in general, feel free to drop a message and we'll be happy to respond to any queries you may have. We'll also have our socials underneath, so if you like and subscribe and follow, we'd really appreciate it.